Imagine you're at work when out of nowhere, sheriffs arrive to seize the company's assets. Then 5 days later, while you're still trying to process that, you receive a letter from your boss informing you that the company is closing and you no longer have a job. That was the reality that Drip Footwear employees had to deal with in October 2024. On the 7th of October, the Johannesburg-based sneaker brand sent a letter to its employees reading, "Your employment contracts are terminated with immediate effect. We request that you no longer tender your services. Any outlets will be closed with immediate effect. The appointed liquidator will take over all Drip Footwear operations or assets. All Drip Footwear assets such as laptops, cell phones, chargers, company cars, fuel cards, or any other items must be returned and handed over to the business to ensure a smooth transition of the liquidation process." And just like that, jobs were lost, and the rumors of the brand's liquidation were confirmed. Drip has been an icon in South African youth culture, representing hope and economic empowerment. Word of its closure has broken many hearts, from those sympathizing with the employees and their families, to fans of its founder, Lekau Sehoana, whose journey from poverty to nationwide success has inspired many young people across the country. But is this really the end of Drip and Sehoana? What is liquidation anyway? And how did the company end up in this situation? Let's break it down. When a company becomes insolvent, meaning it can no longer pay its debts, one solution is to go into liquidation. This means that it closes operations and sells off its assets to pay back its creditors, who are the people or businesses it owes money to. The purpose of liquidation is to repay debts by converting the company's assets into cash. And there are two types of liquidation. There's voluntary, which is initiated by the company's directors and shareholders when they've tried their best to save the business, but it still struggles to survive financially. Then there's compulsory liquidation, where the company is forced into the process by its creditors, usually through the courts. We'll see in a moment which one Drip falls under, but for now, let's look at how they ended up in this situation. The Drip Group has had 3 notable ventures: Drip Footwear, a sneaker brand established in 2019, Drip Finesse, a fragrance brand launched in 2022, and Kitty's Republic, a children's clothing label also launched in 2022. In 2019, Drip was said to be worth 280 million rands. With that kind of net worth in its first year of business, the brand was expected to keep growing from strength to strength. However, the cracks started showing in June 2023. With less than a year from its launch, Kitty's Republic was put into liquidation, with a public statement reading, "The Kitty's Republic Company is a separate entity from other entities managed by the CEO, Mr. Lekau Sehoana. Drip Footwear is a separate entity from the Kitty's Republic. The decision to liquidate the entity, the Kitty's Republic Pty Ltd, was made independently from any other entity managed by Mr. Lekau Sehoana. We reiterate the fact that Drip Footwear is not affected and will remain operational and in business as usual." For some time, this seemed to be the case. The sneaker brand remained strong and unaffected until this year, in 2024, when more financial issues came to the surface. In August, according to Business Live, the South African Reserve Bank seized 3.5 million rand of the group's funds due to its failure to comply with foreign exchange regulations. In the beginning of September, the footwear brand was evicted from its V&A waterfront store in Cape Town for owing 1.1 million rand in unpaid rent. This was followed by court papers demanding for the money to be repaid. But their biggest problem stemmed from a debt agreement with advertising agency Wide Open Platform for unpaid services, which apparently dates back to 2022. Their first agreement was to repay 3.6 million rands in 3 installments starting from the 30th of June 2022. After defaulting on that agreement, they renegotiated the terms of payment in September, increasing the amount owed and the installment sizes. And they did that again in December of the same year. Despite these agreements, they continued to default on their payments until the debt increased to over 20 million rands. The advertiser then decided that liquidation was the best way to get their money back. And so in January this year, they took Drip to court, filing for their liquidation, with court papers citing, the respondent is currently indebted to the applicant in the sum of 20,442,285 rands and 6 cents, with interest thereon at the prevailing prime interest rate calculated from 1 June 2023 to the date of payment, both days inclusive. Both days inclusive means that interest is calculated including both dates. The starting date, which is 1 June 2023, and the end date, the actual date of payment, as well as the period in between them. If we set the end date as 9 September 2024, when the court finalized the liquidation order, the total debt with interest would be somewhere around 23 million rand. Drip did try to fight this application, claiming factual solvency, meaning that they did have enough assets to pay their debts but just couldn't always pay on time. Unfortunately, this was not a strong enough argument. And so on 9 September 2024, the South Gauteng High Court, also known as Johannesburg High Court, ordered its liquidation, which led to all 14 of its stores closing nationwide. Going back to the main types of liquidation, this particular case is a compulsory liquidation because it was filed by the creditor, Wide Open Platform, and ordered by the court. In other words, the company was forced into liquidation because of its unpaid debt. So what will happen next? As the business winds down, it is likely going to undergo the following steps. Application for liquidation. This was filed by the creditor in January and approved by the court in September. Appointment of liquidator. The master of the High Court then appoints a liquidator to take control of the company's assets and manage the liquidation process. This has already happened, as it was mentioned in the company's letter to their staff. Then there's asset identification and valuation, where the liquidator evaluates the company's assets and prepares them for sale, which can either be through auctions or private sales. After that is creditor notification. All known creditors are notified of the liquidation and they're invited to submit claims for what they're owed. So far, we only know about Wide Open Platform, but if they are still owing the V&A Waterfront or anyone else, they'll also be invited to submit their claims. Then there's asset sale and debt repayment. Once the creditors have submitted their claims, the liquidator will go ahead and sell the assets, and then use those proceeds to repay the debts. The secured creditors will be paid first. These are the creditors whose debts are backed by companies' assets. If there is any money left over, it will be distributed among the shareholders. But since the company is said to be insolvent, meaning it doesn't have enough money to settle its debts, there probably won't be anything left for its shareholders. Finally, there's company deregistration and closure. Once the debts are paid, the liquidator submits a final report called the Liquidation and Distribution Account to the Master of the High Court. After the Master approves it, they will issue a certificate to the CIPC, which deregisters the company, marking its official closure. According to Bowman's, the whole process can take between 6 months to 2 years. But there's something slightly unique about this particular debt. As far as we know, in his debt acknowledgement with Wide Open Platform in 2022, Lekau Sehoana backed the debt with a surety agreement, making himself personally liable if the business defaults on payments. This means that if the liquidation process fails to cover the full amount owed to Wide Open Platform, they can still come after Sehoana's personal assets to settle the balance. An article published by Tech Financials in January this year stated, Wide Open Platform plans to pursue legal action against Drip's owner Lekau Sehoana for defaulting on the debt despite having signed a surety agreement on behalf of the company. So even after the liquidation process is complete, he might still face legal action. Can the company be saved? Because this is a compulsory liquidation resulting from insolvency, there's a high likelihood that it will end up deregistering and ceasing to exist. But there's still hope. One potential route is business rescue, which is a formal process that helps distressed companies recover. Cross Trainer, another local sports brand, is currently undergoing business rescue. EFF's Julius Malema suggested this option during a recent media briefing. Another thing to note is that from what we know, this is the liquidation of Drip Footwear and not the Drip Group, the holding company. Just as the Drip Group survived the liquidation of Kitty's Republic in 2023, it may still continue after the winding down of Drip Footwear. And now that you understand Drip's liquidation better, are you not curious about what business rescue is? I'll cover that in an upcoming video. For now, you can click on any of the displayed videos to explore more topics. I am Ms. Shabalala, and this is B.Studies, where theory meets application.